Hey everyone, thanks for joining another Coffee with Kittl. Today I've got my friend Stephanie, and we're going to talk about design, obviously, but a really cool story. I think Stephanie has a super cool story, a really amazing history. I think I actually remember that you said you were a teacher, but you just said it, and I was like, oh shoot, you've done like so many different things. But she runs an amazing studio called Gold Sheep, and I want to hear more about that. She's also a lettering artist. There's a wealth of knowledge I think we're going to get into. Storytelling, you're a writer. I know you're involved with things like SEO and stuff like that. All of this stuff that people probably really struggle with because design is just one element of it. But I think we also need to keep all of these other things and like learn how to wear different hats at different times. So what I want to just start with is maybe opening up, telling people who you are, what you do, and then I'd love to get into the history of your company.
Yeah. First, thanks, Drew, for having me. Drew and I were reminiscing about how we met on Clubhouse. Very specific. It had to be 2021, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is a very, very specific time in our history right after the pandemic. But yeah, I run Gold Sheep Design out of Las Vegas, Nevada with my husband, Nathan. He's an illustrator. I'm a lettering artist, like Drew said. And we met in a Photoshop class in 1999. So wow. we're going way back. Yeah. We met in a class, and he went on to become an art director. He's still an art director at a company that shall not be named, but he also runs Gold Sheep with me. Right. And it was really difficult for me because he was in the graphic design department at the school that we went to.
Okay.
And they very much wanted their designers to get jobs and make money. Graphic design was seen as the commercial art. It was kind of poo-pooed upon in the art department of the school I went to. And I was in the photography department. And that's where I got my start. But they didn't want us making any money. It was basically shunned upon. It was, you were a better artist if you were starving. And with the, I know, right? You'd think, and it drives me nuts because the chair of the department, she's still the chair of the department. And I'm hoping 25 years later that she has changed her ways. I don't know, but I've often thought about how she's still there, and I really hope that she's changed her tune in because in 1999 was a very different time than 2024. I think with the rise of social media, good and bad, we've seen that creatives can and do make a great living out of their art and their creativity in very many different ways. But for me, I was living in a very difficult home situation. And so my fiance, now husband, he was the one that like pursued design. But for me, I was like, what am I going to do with photography other than be a wedding photographer, which I didn't want to do, or live in LA, which I wasn't ready to do at that time in my life. I was very young and very naive. So I gave it up and I became a teacher because I needed to survive. I needed to get out of the living situation that I was in. So I was a teacher for, 4th through 11th grade. 11th grade was where I hit my stride. I shouldn't have been teaching 4th grade. too young. I was an English teacher, and I loved it, but it wasn't, I was hiding the fact that I was so unhappy. I was just happy to be living on my own, being able to not have my house foreclosed upon me, not to be homeless, things like that. But so in 2010, my mom passed away, and she was the one that was really difficult on me. She really was like, no, don't be an artist. I want you to get a job. She was very hard on me. And I think it was because Julia Cameron in her book, The Artist's Way, calls it the shadow artist. And I was a shadow artist. And I think my mom was a shadow artist as well, like living a life where you wanted to be a creative, but you weren't.
And what was it that you were trying to, like, if I can just ask about that extra voice that's saying, no, don't do this. It's not like lucrative. You need to do something, quote, real. What is it that, were you trying to do any things in that time period, creative, artistic, where she was like, no, don't do this,
She told me that earlier in my life when I was a teenager. I remember in art school, like one particular Christmas, she said, please don't show your grandparents your art.
Really?
Like, please, just please don't show your grandparents your art.
Hmm.
And when I was a photographer, she would always just talk about how impossible it was going to be for me to get a job as a photographer. And I think it was because we were living in poverty that she didn't,
Okay.
she just
Yeah.
automatically was like, you can't
Consequently.
make money. You can't make money that way. And someone in the family needs to make money. And so I felt like there was this burden upon me to be the one and only person who makes money, which makes absolutely no sense. And I actually did end up being the only person in my immediate family with a job, my parents included. So I think it was just beaten into me, like not physically, thank goodness, but mentally, like, you need to make money. You need to make money. That's the most important thing. And that, coupled with my school saying, well, you're not going to make any money from your art.
That is wild.
I was just like, well, I have to do something. I have to do something to get out of this living situation.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And so I became a teacher. I know it's, whenever anyone asks, like, oh, why did you become a teacher? I always hated that question because it was such, it wasn't a passion for teaching, even though I still teach. I teach creatives.
Right.
But I was a great teacher. It's not like I wasn't a good teacher. I was an internationally recognized teacher, actually, but I was just sort of like, that's a loaded question. How much time do you have? Do you really want to hear about my life and why I became a teacher? But when I was a teacher, the first, I want to say 6 years as a teacher, I just sort of gave up everything.
You mean the creative dream stuff,
the creative side. Yeah, just the creative side of things. Okay. You know, I got married and I was happy with that, but I didn't really realize how unhappy I was until my mom passed away. And then it was sort of like, well, there's no one left to be hard on me. What do I want to do to heal from all of this? And the next decade was just crazy. The 2010s were a roller coaster of going back to interior design school because I thought that might be what I wanted to do. But really all I did was just rack up more student loans and still not have any business skills.
Right.
And then from there, my husband and I started working together a bit because I was getting a lot of attention from interior designers on my branding and my logo design and my copy and my ability to get clients through SEO and things like that. So I was getting a lot of requests from interior designers and other creatives who knew about me on just like how to build a brand and how to get people to your website. And so my husband and I started doing identity design. But the thing about that was I was the strategist and he was the one doing all of the cool stuff.
The design work.
The design work. And so, and we did that for a while. I did a lot of copywriting. I became a story brand guide. I still very much didn't want to recognize that I wanted to be the person making the cool stuff. I was very much the business minded one, and I still am. And I think if you have a partner in your business, either if you're on your own or if you have a partner, one of you needs to have the business skills. And and my husband acknowledges that is 100% me, but he also recognized in 2020 that I wanted to also be making stuff.
To do stuff.
And 2020 was just such a dumpster fire. I was still teaching through this whole thing because I didn't want to like starve. You know what I mean? I didn't want to, I'm so risk averse, but in 2020, I know this sounds silly, but if you've ever had a soul dog, you understand where I'm coming from. My dog passed away in 2020.
Oh, no.
And he was my everything. He was there with me when my mom passed away. I feel like he was like my first adult thing. Like after getting married, it's like I got married and I got a dog and he was my dog. And it was just really rough on both of us. And we also realized but 2020, you know, we've got the pandemic, our dog passed away, but also that was the year that we tripled our revenue from the previous year in 6 months.
Oh my gosh. What happened there?
I learned how to get leads and I learned how to price. And I was introduced to who is now a very good friend of mine and a co-author of a program that we run together, Ben Burns. And I learned how to price from him. I learned how to send proposals. I already knew contracts. Lead gen, I've always been just naturally good at generating leads.
Oh, nice.
And
okay.
I think that's what helps me in my now teaching capacity of other creatives. Like, I'm not famous. I'm not a design influencer. Those are the last people you honestly want to learn how to get leads from, because they're not generating leads. Like, their lead generation system is, I'm famous.
Is their name.
That's how I get leads.
Yeah.
I'm X designer. You
So
already know
work
who
with
I
me.
am.
Yeah.
So, but we all don't have that, and we all don't want that. I very much like being in incognito mode, like under the radar, not being famous. It's just not what I want to do. I want to make stuff. I think if I were to become famous, I would be in the same cycle of, but I want to make stuff. I don't want to sit here talking about making stuff. I want to make stuff.
Well, I'm sorry that you have to do this podcast.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I already told you, today is like a video day. I have to make videos all day. It's okay. Tomorrow, I'm going to make stuff.
Tomorrow's
my make stuff day.
Yeah.
So we were able to take our business in 2019. We did $30,000, which is great. 2 people working full time. That's money to just help make life more fun. But in 6 months in 2020, during the pandemic, we made $90,000.
Wow.
And that for me was like, this is the job quitting money. But I still wasn't making stuff. I was still doing all of the strategic work, which I still do. And I was doing all of the business stuff. And we also had like horrible clients. Like I was just like, these clients are awful.
Like, as in, like, they just, we're talking about like changes, they're difficult to work with, like they're just.
All of it.
Yeah.
The project was something that I was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this logo. Like, I can't believe I'm working with this company.
Okay.
I can't believe, like, just like, there was an alignment there with it, what I call my creative cocktail. It's like there's craft, there's character, and there's conquest. And my character column is very important to me. It's like, I like working on the types of projects that I like doing. Like, if I'm in that world already, like I've designed websites for guitar shops.
Oh yeah.
I'm a guitar player, like that type of stuff. But I was just like, I'm just not passionate about these projects. Difficult to work with, lots of revisions, never happy. And then a lot of times the project went nowhere. It was like we were bored during COVID and we did this thing, and like it was just very rare to ever see our projects out in the world, because it was always just some experiment that the company wanted to do. And it was just driving us nuts. And on top of, I think our dog passing away made us realize, like, this isn't what we want to do.
Yeah.
So we burned down the entire portfolio, changed the name of the business. We needed to like make sure that old world that knew us didn't know us anymore. And so we just really spent the rest of 2020 figuring out what that was going to look like, building a portfolio with personal work. And I started lettering. And that was also the year I was just very fortunate. The pandemic was horrible in so many ways, but the pandemic also brought people like Ken Barber into the online teaching space. Yep. And I think I have taken every Ken Barber workshop that he's offered since 2020. Online, and some of just a friend of mine calls him the boss. She's like, "Oh, you mean the boss? You mean Ken?"
Yeah.
Just such an amazing lettering artist, and I learned so much so quickly, and I soon realized this was what I wanted to do. And I just wish that I had known earlier that that's what I wanted to do. But it took a very long journey for me to figure out the craft side of the business that I really wanted to sink my teeth into. And it complemented my husband's illustrations.
Yes.
So it really worked well together. Like, give us a brand, we can do a logo. I can letter something. He can illustrate something. That's perfect. But it doesn't pin us into branding either. There's a lot of different opportunities for an illustration lettering duo, like my husband and I, and that's where we are right now. We've done work with. We've recently licensed some of our work to a Star Wars licensee. We're waiting on that to get manufactured. It's kind of out of our hands, but we've also licensed some of my husband's Marvel illustrations, his DC illustrations, to theme parks.
Yeah, I saw Six Flags. I also saw some work went to BBC, right?
Yeah, we have an illustration inside of a Doctor Who anthology book. We're very
Wow.
cool,
Okay.
very cool. Yeah.
That is so cool. Yeah. So that's definitely a wild ride from the I was told I can't make money as an artist to still not making money as an artist, but making money with design.
Yeah.
You're doing the strategy to then kind of being the fully realized actualization of, okay, now I figured out what I want to do that's creative. And I wonder how many watching or listening are going to be resonating with that to a degree, or stuck where you kind of were for a long time, and maybe hopefully getting the motivation to say, like, you know what, I do want to kind of test that out. And maybe before I get into any of my kind of practical businessy questions, which I still think are very helpful for people, I kind of want to know we can call them the lost, they're probably not lost years because it seemed to happen pretty rapidly, but we'll just call them the lost months of finding out what you wanted to do. So we arrived on lettering some there, but you
Yeah.
mentioned for a second, you mentioned interior design, which I think is, to me, feels like a left turn. It's like related, but not. But maybe can you talk about, like, because maybe this is where people are too. They're like trying out so many different things,
Hmm.
and maybe they're spending lots of money, maybe they're not. But like, maybe let's talk about like the lost weeks or the lost months before you kind of like felt like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this
It
is
was years.
nice.
It was years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Interior design made sense for my life in 2010 because
Okay.
I had just bought my first house.
Okay.
And my grandparents were interior designers. So
Hmm.
I grew up, and that's some of the happiest memories
Oh,
of my
wow.
childhood was being in my grandparents' studio, the smell of upholstery fabric. There's something
Hmm.
very reminiscent about that for
Okay.
me. And I was spending a lot of time with my grandfather at that time as well, because my mother had, like, his daughter had just passed away. My grandmother, his wife, passed away the day before my first day of teaching. And she was my everything. She was my biggest supporter. And I feel like I picked interior design because it was relevant for what I was doing, but also it kind of helped me feel closer to my grandmother. And it was something that I could,
Okay.
share with my grandfather.
Yeah.
But once again, I was just sourcing other people's creativity to make
Exactly.
rooms feel really fabulous. But, I still love interior design. Like,
Okay.
I just bought my house in Las Vegas, and I love extending my creativity into as many ways of life as
The
possible.
physical space,
So,
like even what's
yeah, like
behind you. Yeah.
my physical space,
Hmm.
like taking the Gold Sheep brand, once we realized what we wanted and what we really were passionate about, figuring out how can we just not have this be our company, but how can we have this be our life. We were so
Mm.
excited
Wow.
about the idea of this company that's kind of built upon, the gold sheep it's not the black sheep of the family, it's not the white sheep of the family, it's the gold sheep. It's the
Mm.
ones that go against what society wants you to do and still
Interesting. Yeah.
shines.
Yes.
So that's why we're gold sheep, and we're very nonconformist. We live a very different lifestyle than what our families probably expected of
Hmm.
us.
Hmm.
And like, we moved to Las Vegas, for crying out
Yeah.
loud. So and we really, like, we built this house to really kind of help us live our creative life the way we wanted. Like, my small office that I have right here is off of our music space, and we wanted to make
Got
sure we
it.
had a music space.
Yeah.
And everything in our house is very gold sheep, and it's not because we wanted everything to be on brand, it's because we are our brand.
Hmm.
And so interior design, while it does seem like the oddball, it just seemed natural at the time. But if it wasn't for that interior design, that initial interior design business of mine, where people started noticing the design work that we do, like the 2D graphic design work that we do. And then there was times when we were designing people's offices and their branding,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which was really, like, that was
Yeah.
like, it was like this little crossover period.
Super cool.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was super fun. Probably should have kept that up, because we would have made so much money during the pandemic.
Yeah,
with everyone turning to home offices and home offices becoming so important. But
oh yeah,
and interior design, it's still something that I could have.
Yeah.
It's some sort of income stream that I'm huge on that. Like, I am, after working with clients for so long and realizing now in our business, I don't really want to work with clients one-on-one anymore. I want to pursue more art licensing, merchandising,
Okay.
wholesaling, things like that. With the occasional client, if the project is right, I think that, as I consider myself more of an artist than a designer, I think it's kind of like I'm a commercial artist. I think there's so many different routes that our business could take, that the more income streams we get up and rolling, the better.
Yeah.
Just because one of them, like even with art licensing and being so fully focused on theme parks.
Right.
What if theme parks close down again?
Exactly.
Like, one of our licensing agreements for Universal Studios, that work never actually made it into the theme parks because of the pandemic. It was licensed.
Yeah.
And we got paid for it. Thank God I picked the flat fee and not the royalties.
Yeah.
But it never made it in. So it was just like, and you just never know where the economy is going, where just the country is going. So it's really good to have those multiple income streams. And the more you can monetize, I know this is very capitalist and commercial, but I'm just going to just say it, like, just because I was always ever told, don't monetize your art, don't monetize your art. I think the more ways you can monetize your art, the smarter and the better business move.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Now, let me ask a little bit more into the practical question, because I know that, that whole time your husband, Nathan, was doing amazing illustration, the 2D graphics. We're getting them into things like a Six Flags or like a Universal, or at least licensing them out. Maybe, and I want to come back to this as many ways as we can do it, because I think that's really cool, and it's also what everybody struggles with, because most people are one track mind. Like, one of the biggest hypes was, and still is right now, like a print on demand type shop, which is fine, is cool. We do a lot of that. But when we're talking about like getting work, so actually running either a design business, or maybe you're a freelancer or what have you, what happened, or what did you do for the work to kind of get noticed to the point of, wow, we've attracted a Six Flags, or we've attracted a BBC, or, and obviously this is why I like the positioning. You have your kind of design plus pop culture, right? And so that's how you've melded it, your passions together with design. But I still think that whatever anybody is doing, whatever kind of design, we'll just call it niche or branding, identity design, whatever, like, there are still tactics for getting noticed, putting yourself out there, right? You said you're really good at getting leads, stuff like that. So what was happening, or what did happen to get that work that he does so amazing into these either theme parks or things like that?
Yeah. Okay. Everyone get a pen, and I want you to write down these 3 letters.
Got it right here.
SEO. SEO. That's it. It was really an SEO game. I'm not too sure that it was an Instagram game, even though it was posted on Instagram. It was posted on Instagram when Instagram was so unsearchable for things other than hashtags. And I don't think anyone really searched hashtags all that much.
And transitioned into more video too.
Yeah, exactly. This was a while ago, before Instagram went TikTok. It was SEO. It was SEO on the website. It was a combination of SEO.
Okay.
So there's on-site SEO, which is it's your website. Please, everyone, have your own website with your work, even if it's a really simple website, and learn how to do just some basic SEO. The SEO that my husband and I do, it is not paid for. We don't pay someone to do it for us. It is just some basic stuff. Just learn the very basics.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you use your meta tags, your captions, you name your file correctly. all of that, like the page that it's on has those keywords. And I believe they found Batman. I believe they found his Batman in a Google image search.
Wow.
Like Batman illustration, something like that. And then from there,
I'm sure there's a lot of that, by the way.
A lot
if you
of
type
them.
in Batman illustration, everything's coming up.
Yeah. And then there's, and then from there, they found the Batman illustration and they commissioned the Joker, they commissioned the Wonder Woman, they commissioned the badge for Superman, Batman, and Green Lantern. And then that just started that relationship with that licensee who puts work into theme parks. But interesting, I would want to note this. If you do pop culture illustrations, and that's why it's not like, he was doing that work because he was bored at work.
So he was like, those were almost passion projects, if you will.
Yeah, that was that was just some passion projects, tribute work. Don't sell that stuff, guys. Yeah. don't put other people's entities on your print on demand, because don't do it. Which is a different talking point. And that's why just focusing on tribute art, it's cool and you get noticed, but it is very difficult to monetize. And that's why now we're kind of moving away from doing that, because we want to create work that we can sell in a lot of different ways. And the only way that we can sell this like the Star Wars, the Marvel, the DC, the Doctor Who stuff is through someone who has a license to sell those.
It's a much smaller audience, that is, right?
Yes. Yes. And so it was just the luck of SEO, but there's also borrowed SEO.
Okay.
This is where you can put your work on Pinterest. Make sure you optimize it on Pinterest. It's a very different, you use this Pinterest search bar to help you kind of figure out what the keywords are. So if you put in Batman and then it says Batman art underneath it, that's what you want to label your image on Pinterest as, not Batman illustration, Batman art, because it tells you, Pinterest will tell you with the search bar what people are looking for.
Exactly.
So if you put your work on Pinterest and you put your work on Behance and even DeviantArt, if we think about site, this is where I don't even know like the proper words for SEO. Site authority, brand authority.
Yeah.
So Behance and Pinterest, DeviantArt, all of these places have a higher search authority than Gold Sheep Design. So if someone Googles Batman illustration, the image from Pinterest or the image from Behance or the image from DeviantArt might and probably will rank higher than the original image from Gold Sheep, which is fine. On these other sites, it all leads back to Gold Sheep. And then and I noticed this by chance, Behance and DeviantArt pin the work on their site onto Pinterest. I've found our work on Pinterest pinned by Behance.
Yeah.
Pinned by DeviantArt. And so a lot of times what the images that people are finding, they're not finding it directly from Gold Sheep. They're finding it from these other sites that we've put it on. And they're not really going to Behance to look for Batman illustration. They're just searching Batman illustration, and either the DeviantArt or the Behance image ranks higher because of the site authority of those sites. So that's one way. The Doctor Who one, that was a call for submissions. And this is where it's very, like, I'm huge on, like, the brands you want to work with, follow them in the world, see if there's any kind of opportunities, like getting your work inside a book. And then what we're doing now is we're sort of phasing out, we're not making any new pop culture related art just because we can't sell it. And we're smarter now. We love when people tell us, like, I was at Six Flags Magic Mountain and I saw someone walking around with a shirt with your art. It's so cool, but it's so difficult to monetize that work. So what we're doing now is we're creating, that's our project for the week, is putting all of that into all of that kind of, you have to be an official licensee to sell it. And so we have to pitch that to official licensees only. what we're doing now is we're making a special deck just for that work to pitch to brands that we know have licenses
Yep.
through email, just to give it one more go before we move away. Like, it's still going to be there. It's still on the site. It's still licensable, but we're not going to make more of it because we can't do anything else with it.
Yep.
It's the work that everyone thinks is like so cool of ours, but it's dead unless an official licensee comes along and wants it. And we've had people want it who aren't official licensees, and I'm like, no, you have to be in. If I have like any kind of like reservations, I'm like, I need to see your license.
Yeah.
And that happened with us with the Star Wars company because it was such a small company, and I just said, I just need due diligence. Can I see your license with Star Wars? And they were like, yeah, sure, it's right here. And they sent it to me. I was like, oh, you do have a license with Star Wars. That's awesome. Let's go.
Yeah. If they think it's like, if they think that they're actually going to make money and it's worth the risk for them to get the license, it's like, I think Dr. Squatch also has a license to use all of the Star Wars. That's how they have their soap branded as like the Darth Maul soap or the Sage Wisdom Yoda green soap or whatever. Like, obviously they have the logos on the daggone box, so they have to have a license to do that.
Yeah. Truff hot sauce just came out with and anytime I see a brand like that, I put it down in my tracker, like for outreach. I'm like, oh, they have a license. They have a license.
Yeah. That would be amazing. If I see some Dr. Squatch ads that have the illustrations on them, let's go.
That would be dope.
Yeah,
let's go.
I will be buying
adding Dr. Squatch to the list.
super cool. So now I want to ask if we're kind of moving away from that heavy licensable stuff because it's such a smaller audience. What are we going to be moving to then?
Yeah.
And that also we can kind of keep in the back of my mind. You were saying like, look, as an artist, designer, whatever, like being able to make multiple, like selling it as many ways as possible is a good thing, where like, and I think there's two voices to that, because you will have some people, some gurus, saying like, look, you need to do one thing, you need to do one thing really, really well. And that's also fine. But like, I'm also on many things. I sell my stuff on Creative Market. I sell it on Etsy. I sell it through my website. I sell it through Instagram. Well, like, I'm doing the same thing that you're saying, is like, let's try to get as many methods as possible. So is that what you have in mind for moving out of the more licensable, heavy pop art? And also, what are you going to be doing if not that?
Yeah. Fun. Okay. So this is where the interior design kind of part of it comes back into play. I was listening to a talk from Bonnie Christine, who is a fabric designer. And she was saying, do you like the art you're making? And while we do like the pop culture art we're making, when we sat back and we're like, would we put it up in our house? Maybe not. Like, it's cool stuff, but maybe in, a room. But I feel like we've grown a lot since since my husband was doing that. We've also, I feel like Star Wars, man, stop making so many movies. You're just sort of like, it's diluting it. So what we're doing is we're thinking art licensing is going to be the core of what we're doing. Everything we create, we want it to be licensable, which makes and licensable by any brand who might be interested in it, which means using other people's IP is just off the table. And we also want to, everything that we create that's licensable, can we turn it into a product that we sell?
Yes.
So that's something, whether that be print on demand to start, to just research the market and see what people are interested in before we invest in getting a bunch of mugs that no one wants.
Maybe no one will buy, or screen printing 500 shirts that you sit on top of. Yeah.
Exactly. And we're ready for that. Like if we go into manufacturing, we'll do that, but we're going to just test the waters with some print on demand stuff and have it really be like because as Gold Sheep, we think differently. We don't go into mass market stores and see what we really like.
Mm.
which makes me, and I know there are people like me who are maybe a little more dark, a little more rock and roll, like to sip some
Mm-hmm.
whiskey instead of,
Oh yeah.
an Aperol spritz.
Yep.
I'm not a live, laugh, love kind of person. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with
No.
being a live, laugh, love type of person, but
Sure.
that's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so just thinking, what do we need? I would really like a really cool apron that doesn't have like a country floral on it.
Mm-hmm. Or
So just
cottage
thinking
core
about
thing. Yeah.
exactly, which is beautiful. It's just
Yeah.
not my thing.
Sure.
So what could I make for myself that I would really want that I know other people would want too? Because I'm special, but I'm not that special. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like I have very kind of macabre interests. I'm into true crime and I listen to a lot of heavy metal, but I'm not the only one out there like that.
Exactly.
So there has to be other people like me who have these interests who don't go into the big box stores and see they what they would like in their house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much about we're just trying to see like what do we want? What do we like? Let's make some products around that and see if and it's all an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
It's just testing out to see what, right now I'm working on a collection based on vintage Las Vegas because I also really love retro culture and I love Vegas. Like there's a reason I moved here. I love the history behind it. I love the lettering everywhere. I love the lights.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm working on a collection that's inspired by vintage Las Vegas. And from there, I'll pitch it out to art licensing, but also think, okay, maybe this is going to be some greeting cards that we saw on our site, or maybe this is going to be a cool headscarf or a mug or some, who knows? We'll figure it out. But
Right.
that's sort of what we're doing. It's like creating a collection of work, pitching it to license, and then adding in an income stream that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm assuming kind of the natural next question that someone's going to have is like, okay, well, we don't have a database of people to send it to get people to buy the license to or whatever. So obviously we're going to bring SEO back into this, I assume, to be able to kind of get it out there or show people what you're doing. So what are those kind of, I guess, practical steps? And I'm feeling like maybe there's some storytelling that comes into this, right? Is like,
Yeah,
you're going to do that collection. You immediately already have a story, a really powerful
absolutely.
story behind it.
Yeah.
And so maybe if you can talk about the story aspect for a minute.
Yeah. So anytime my husband and I create anything, it's from us. It's that creative cocktail I was talking about earlier. It's like everything we create is rooted in our craft,
Right.
illustration and lettering. But then we throw in like character. Character is like, that extra little spice that you add to your cocktail. And it's what makes your work so you. And
Okay,
so
yeah.
so when I decided to make this vintage Las Vegas collection, the story, it's not just that we moved here because of the cool design history. It's Las Vegas was the first vacation I took as a kid where I felt something. I felt like, oh my gosh, this place is beautiful. I love the sound of a casino. I'm weird. I love the smell of a casino.
Oh my gosh.
But then I know it's weird. Casinos are like a regular part of my life now. But also, this is where we were married. We were married in Las Vegas. So we have a history here, even though we weren't born here. And so weaving that story into the collection itself. But SEO isn't the only way, especially for art licensing. I know people will say, like, I don't have a database of people to pitch this to. Well, you just need to go make one.
Okay.
And I mean, that's just the way it's that business work that we have to do in order to make money off of our creativity. We have to pitch our work. Either that or you find an agent to do it for you. But I mean, I think everyone should learn how to pitch their work as an artist. And so it's all about just finding the brand. I mean, you just go out into the world. If there's art on something, and the ladies at Good Type say this so well, like you just go into a shop and you flip it over, the product, and it'll tell you on the back who made the product. Write that down. And then you go on to LinkedIn, or you just Google up that company and you look for art buyer, art director, creative director. It's probably someone like an art buyer. And you find their email. You find it on their website. You find it on using something like hunter.io, and you send them your work.
Yeah.
And the thing is especially companies who license work, they expect those emails.
Okay.
They're looking for art to put on product. So you just send them your work. You say, hey, I have these cool collections. I think it would be you personalize it. I'm huge on personalizing. And when I'm teaching my students any kind of outreach at all, whether it's for client work or for art licensing work, like personalize the email. Like let them know you're paying attention a little bit to who they are. So a really great example of this is I sent a cold email, not for art licensing, but for just to build a relationship for possible client work, to an online educator who teaches bass. And my husband uses his classes. He loves the guy.
Right.
And so I included that in the email. I said, hey, my husband loves your channel. His slap has improved a lot since he started taking your courses. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Stephanie. My husband and I run Gold Sheep Design, an illustration and design studio, and we would love to work with you on any other design work that you may need. Do you have time to set up a chat? We would love to introduce ourselves. Send them and I included a capabilities deck, which is different than the art licensing deck. The art licensing deck has like all of the work that you can license. The capabilities deck has these are our services that we provide, and here's evidence. It's sort of like a little mini website in a PDF. Send it to him. Emailed me and was like, yeah, let's set up a time. Let's talk.
Nice.
And my husband got to chat with him about bass. We got to chat about how we could possibly work together. And while we haven't worked together yet, the conversation is still there.
Exactly.
We know him because we just reached out to him. And if he ever has any additional design needs, we're top of mind. So outreach is huge. And this is why, if you're a famous designer, you don't have to do these types of things. But if you're like me, you have to learn how to do some basic SEO. You have to get out there and introduce yourself to people.
What's the worst they can do is say no thank you, right?
The worst they can do is block you, and that's fine. The worst they can do is say no thank you, but most of the time people are very kind. I have found, even when I've never had anyone say go away. Because my emails are so nice. And I think that's where, when you're creating work in the world you live in, and the world we live in is like the pop culture world. It's the music world. It's Las Vegas. It's cocktails. It's, all of these things. We're creating work around the world we live in, which means we can talk about it in a cold email and not be like, hi, so I noticed your website sucks. I can help you fix it. Here's my rates. Let's set up a chat. I'm able to just introduce myself and say, like, I emailed a major guitar manufacturer and I said, hey, I love your company so much that I named my childhood dog after you. I would love to set up a time to chat just about like what you've got. And it's not always to pitch your work. Sometimes it's just to build relationships with people so you're top of mind and growing your network. So if they ever did need some merchandise designed, Gold Sheep is top of mind. And the marketing director at this company, she said, with an introduction like that, how can I say no? You named your dog after us.
That's funny.
But you have to be able to talk the language of the brands that you're pitching to for client work specifically. For art licensing, they're expecting it. They're expecting people to pitch their work. It's just part of the world. But if you're trying to get client work, you really have to not butter them up, but you just have to show that you really are genuinely interested in the work that they do and that you would love to work with them. And who's gonna say go away to something like that? If they say go away to something like that, I don't want to work with them anyway. The worst we've ever had is your work is great. We handle everything in-house, but if we ever have anything like any large project where we need a special kind of illustrator, we've got your deck.
Nice.
And you see, it's still not,
It's still
that's
not
not a
mean.
bad
Yeah.
response.
It's not mean.
And it's also, it's good intel for me. It's good research, because what I found reaching out to a lot of the larger musical instrument companies and the smaller musical instrument companies, because I treat outreach like little like experiments. It's a test. I take a market segment like musical instrument companies, and I'm like, is this viable? Is there a need for what we have within this industry? I found that the larger companies work with agencies. We're not an agency, we're just a studio. But that got my brain rolling. So I should be reaching out to the agencies, because the agencies probably don't have a lettering artist and an illustrator on staff.
Right. They're just
introduce
required for the deliverable. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's introduce ourselves to the agencies. And then the smaller musical instrument companies either had really small budgets, or they were just like, well, I thought I could just pay you in guitar pedals. So that in my mind was like, okay, this is just a dead end. They value what we do, but they don't have the money. Mm-hmm. And when you're trying to generate leads for client work, that's the two things. It's like, they need to value the work. They could have the most horrendous logo, but if they don't value a beautiful logo, they're not gonna care that you think their logo's horrible. And also, logos aren't always. Sometimes the uglier the logo, the better. Like there's a taco shop down the street. Their logo is ugly as sin. There's a line out the door because their tacos are so great. And that logo kind of lets people know, like, we're not a bougie taco shop. We're like the legit taco shop.
Yeah, exactly.
So people have to value the work that you do, and they also have to have the money to work with you. It's like those two things. It's like the guitar pedal companies, they were like, yeah, let's work together. Your style would look so dope on a effects pedal. I was like, I think it would too. And then it came to be that they just didn't have the money. And so I was like, okay, so the boutique companies, unfortunately, as much as we would like to work with them, it just doesn't make sense for us because we're running a business. And then the larger companies, they don't have that need because they have the money, but they don't have the need because they're going to an agency. So that outreach, regardless of whether or not you get clients from it or not, is all great research to help you figure out, is this a good route to take? Is this a good, industry to try to break into? Or is it a dead end? Or, is this going to reroute me to who is actually doing the hiring?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that makes total sense. And hopefully people are taking notes on that, because I feel like a lot of them may be doing that third option, which is just going to all these smaller versions of whatever. You said you picked the niche, like musical instruments. They're going to the little companies, and they're either not getting any money, or they're just taking the the free products in return as payment, which don't really cost the company that much because they've got 100 pedals sitting there ready to sell. So I hope that's extremely helpful for everyone listening and watching. I do want to ask and give you some time to talk about the community that you're kind of fostering, so that everybody, if they're interested, they can go to that, check it out. Maybe just talk a little bit about how that was created, what you're doing there, like the purpose, if you're offering calls, is it trainings? I just want to hear more about that, because I'm not sure if I saw that or not. So that's kind of news to me. So I'd love to know, and for everyone listening and watching.
It's through the company, The Futur. I was their freelance copywriter for about a year. I wrote all of their emails, all of their sales pages. And the way this happened was I was approached by Domestika to do a course.
Cool.
And The Futur also sells online courses. And I, as their copywriter, was like not trying to get in with The Futur or anything like that. I was just trying to they were a client. And so I said, am I allowed to do this? Like, is that conflict of interest?
To do the course on Domestika?
On Domestika, yeah. And then Ben Burns, the COO, he was like, well, let's talk about it. Why don't you just do it here?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, because I'm your copywriter. I was like, I that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to try to be a design influencer like the rest of y'all. And he was like, no, let's run a workshop. And it was called the Dream Project Workshop. And it really was all about the things I've talked about, like how to build a portfolio that attracts the types of clients you want to work with and how to get it out into the world. And it was the best selling workshop in the Future's history. It outsold like their CEO, Christo, like it outsold his workshops. I was just, and Chris was like, how is this happening? And I was like, I don't know.
That's so
I have no
funny.
idea. And I ended up running that 3 times. And then Ben, in the back of his mind, he wanted to create this program that sort of, because Chris is really great at helping the business owners who are already kind of established and have clients. He's able to help them like level up their pricing and get bigger clients. But there was really kind of not a whole lot that the Future had for the very beginning business owner.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Or the people who, don't want to go bigger. They just want to, make really cool stuff and have the right people see it. So Ben's brilliant with like systems and processes, pricing. The man teaches pricing. Like that's how I was able to
awesome.
I already praised him on his price. He teaches pricing like no one else teaches pricing. You know exactly how much you need to charge once you go through Ben's trainings. Sending proposals, contracts, writing case studies, things like that. He's great at that. But what he needed was that lead gen piece. Like, but how do you get the clients into the door in the first place? And I always say, like, if you all are working on your proposals and your pricing and your contracts and your processes before you have clients, that's like procrastinate work. Like you have to learn the SEO. You have to do the outreach and social media content creation is a part of that as well. So he asked me after he saw how people were interested in my portfolio workshop, he was sort of like, do you want to partner on this thing with me? And I was like, for real? And he was like, yeah. Like, let's go. And so I became their education director, not just helping create what is now the Accelerator Program, but helping other creatives launch their courses. So I've helped Chris launch several courses. I have helped Made by James launch his course that he had with us last year. So I'm like I'm the behind the scenes person that makes sure all that stuff gets done. I get the design influencers whipped into shape and like, no, let's like create a curriculum around this and get it out into the world. But so I help Ben run our Future Accelerator Program, and it is meant for creative service providers who are they're either just starting out in their creative career and want to not work for the man and have their own business, or they have a side hustle like I did, or they're like my husband who's like the in-house escapee, like, right. It's like we're trying to get him out of the like 20 years of working as an art director for one company. Like, what does that look like? But without just imagine, but with no business skills. Like you're an amazing designer, but you have no, like the business side of things is just not there. So it's part community. We have over like about 500 people in there. The community is amazing. You can just ask a question, get it answered. It's part coaching every Friday, rain or shine, except on holidays. I think we've only missed one day in the last year and a half of doing this. Ben and I have a 2-hour coaching call with our members on just basically anything they need. But the heart of it is a roadmap of curriculum that Ben and I, blood, sweat, tears, and a few arguments. We put together, it's 10 modules, and it walks you through, making sure your portfolio is in order and getting a capabilities deck created and then testing it out with outreach and then start working on your processes and your pricing and your contracts and all of that. And then more outreach. Yeah, don't do it backwards. And then, starting like how to network effectively, even like I'm an introvert. Like how do you network as an introvert? How do you network in a way that gets you clients?
Yeah. Wow.
And then moving into, your website and getting your website designed. And because I think so many people waste time with their website right up front when you don't even know who you're serving yet when you're just starting.
Great point.
Like, let's do some outreach. Let's test this out. Let's figure out who your clients are and then work on your website. And we have members who have booked 5-figure clients without a website because they're just sending the emails to the right people.
Yeah, exactly.
And then from there, we do talk a lot about inbound, so content creation. I have an SEO class in there. I have a Pinterest class in there. Ben has an interviewing class in there. And then
Wow.
we have different guest experts, like how to put together a media kit, how to get on podcasts, all of that kind of stuff. And then
Wow.
just like a nice wrap up of, what are your next steps? So is your next step to hire, to scale? Is it going to be to create different income streams from client work? And so it's really just like, it's all of that work. And I'm kind of mean. It's kind of mean, but it's really effective. The thing about the roadmap is we force you to do it. You only get access to one module at a time, and you have to turn in work. And if
That's
you don't turn in the
crazy.
work,
That's awesome.
you don't move on to the next module. But that's why our success rate, like we have just crazy testimonials of people getting work. It's because we're forcing them to do the work. And we look at the work too. It's like when you turn in your capabilities deck, you get maybe like a 20-minute one, like personalized critique of your capabilities deck before you send it out. Same with your website. So and your proposal as well, like we give that one-on-one feedback at certain touch points, but you have to do the work in order to, we gamified it basically. So that's like that's the major component of it.
Yeah.
Because, I'm guilty of this too. Like I'm going to buy a bunch of courses.
Oh, me
and
too.
Then never do anything. And then when people reach out for a testimonial, I'm like, oh, but I never did anything.
Yeah.
I think it's the curse of the online education world, is like, you're not really being held accountable. But in Accelerator, we've figured out a way to hold people accountable and still, so they get results. And oh boy, do they hate us when they get to that capabilities deck. They're like, but I don't want to do it. And I'm like, but you're not going to get clients unless you do. Like you have to do this. So you have to do the work. I know you all just want to sit around and make carousels all day about your thoughts, but that's not going to get client work. And then there's the coaching calls to either help you with the curriculum or with sticky client situations. And then there's the community that, there have been times when there's been emergencies pop up for members over the weekend, and they put it in the community, and Ben and I are doing our things with our families, and then we come on Monday and I'm like, oh, the community totally rallied together and helped them with this. I'm just like, do you still need help? And they're like, oh no, everyone helped. And it's just,
there you go.
It's unlike any community I've ever been a part of. And I think it's because there's a wealth of experience, but because there's so many people who are at different stages in their business but they're all there for one purpose. And that's to, make a living doing what they love doing.
Exactly. Well, if that sounds like something those of you listening and watching want to check out, I have that linked down in the description for you. Stephanie, this has been an amazing hour. I do want to leave you with the last word before I tell people to subscribe and click the like button, which you should have done already if you're at 57 minutes into this video and you haven't done that. I'm not entirely sure why. I do want to prompt everyone to go comment down below if they have a question. If there's a topic that we discussed, you heard something Stephanie say that you're just not sure about or want to dive deeper into, if you could comment that down below for us so we can check, that'd be awesome. But what I want to just briefly return to is the thought of those artists or designers that are still kind of stuck, very similar to how you were for years, and just any last motivating, encouraging thought that you can give them, that maybe they were told very similar to you, there's no money in this, or you should pursue something else, or you should do something more realistic. I just kind of keep returning to that in my head. So if we can just encourage those people before we sign off, I think that would be amazing.
Absolutely. I think you just need to just look at the world around you and see so many things have been designed. So many things have art on them. This is a very different world than the one I grew up in, where everything was sort of, there was gatekeepers on all of this information, and none of it I didn't learn any of this from art school. I learned all of it from just grinding and the online world that we're in. So hopefully you see that, if you just look around you, there's art everywhere, there's design everywhere, and there's room for your voice, because not everyone's the markets aren't favorable to those kind of fringe voices like my own, but there's still a market for it. There's still like, look at Gold Sheep, look at people like Hellcats. Look out, and you'll see that there are people out there just making really cool work that doesn't necessarily have to be 100% mainstream, that, you know, that's getting attention out there. And if you're struggling with just the thought of creating anything for yourself, start with the book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. It literally changed my life during the pandemic with everything that I was going through. I picked it up and I just started, it's not just reading it, but doing the work inside of it changed everything for me. And if you have time, make something for yourself this week, this month, this year, if it's been a long time. Just make something that you want to see in the world with no creative brief other than the one you create for yourself. And you'll be surprised. It's probably going to be the best work you've done in a while.
Perfect.
Because clients screw up projects. Ain't that right?
All right. Well, with that advice, all of you listening and watching need to go create something for yourself. I can't think of anything better to sign off on. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Everything is linked down in the description where to go and join Stephanie on Instagram and other places like that. It's all linked down in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.